Next, from Kansas City, Populous, I want to introduce you to Brian Mirakian. He'll be talking about esports facilities, the next wave. Brian?
Thank you so much, and thanks for the invitation to come and speak with you today. My name is Brian Mirakian. I'm a senior principal at Populous, and we are an architecture firm that focuses on sports and entertainment architecture. Where we live is really at the intersection of sports business, brand, and next-gen consumerism. You know, that's how our practice was founded 30-some years ago, and where we are today. And so, what I'm going to talk about today is briefly on some of the projects that we've done, but where the world is headed. And in particular, where the world of esports is headed and how that's going to relate to future venues that you're going to see coming into the fold over the course of the next few years. Esports is a part of the practice that I have led. I focus on a lot of future projects within our practice, and really what we're looking at predominantly is where's the market going to take us. And for all of you, you of course know that the esports is one of the biggest driving factors right now in the industry. It's growing at an exponential rate. And what does that mean for physical experiences? How do we take that virtual experience that people can encounter on their mobile device or through Twitch or through some live events that are happening right now, but most of it's happening in a home environment. How does that translate into a physical environment? And ultimately, what does that do to really propel this sport? So what we have always done is focused around innovation, no matter what the building type is. T-Mobile Arena, Molly mentioned Yankee Stadium. This is one of our projects. And in this case, Wimbledon Center Court, we designed the rolling roof. And so everything that we have done has been based around how do we create innovation for those particular sports. This is the 2012 London Olympic main stadium. So as I mentioned, what I'm going to talk a little bit about today is this new landscape of esports. And it's really quite incredible when you see just the growth. When you think about the fact that there are now more people watching Twitch every day. There's probably 250,000 people watching Ninja or something on Twitch right now. There's more people watching Twitch than ESPN. So that's something that's quite interesting and something to think about in terms of how to reach these audiences. The prize pools are growing. And there's even discussions now around esports in some form being an Olympic sport, and testing it for sure in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. So all these things are major factors. So what I'm going to show you here is some of our future thinking around what we think these esports venues are going to be. And looking at the way that they can begin to be embedded into comprehensive entertainment districts, mixed-use lifestyle, things like condos, F&B, retail, merchandising, places to test games and have brands activate on site. But really, a broader, comprehensive strategy is the way that we're looking at all of our venues, but certainly esports as well, too. The sort of live sites that you see activating outside of buildings, integration of technology, of course. And then inside the venues, the way that we imagine these future venues just being highly, highly immersive from a technology perspective and being able to rebrand and shift based on what the games are going to be. New approaches to premium experiences. And we think augmented reality is going to be a huge part of these experiences moving into the future. Seating products, things that are haptic and can react to what's happening with the gamer, for instance. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a few slides in the future. We really think that these buildings are going to be. This is not only esports, but just the venues of the future in general, whether it's NBA, NHL, being able to shape-shift through adaptive, mechanized technologies. So ceiling technologies that move and change, and really create flexible adaptability. And then looking into our urban centers, tight urban conditions, some adaptive reuse projects, and I'm going to speak about that as well later in the presentation, the way that we can stack program in unique ways so you can create critical mass and activity all throughout the year. Esports is global, and so creating these connections between cities all around the world is super important. And then looking at it from an elite training facility perspective, they're really athletes, and so thinking about ways in which we can adopt a lot of what we're doing in an elite training facility into these sort of venues. So that gives you a little bit of flavor for kind of where we think the world is headed. And I'm going to dive down a little bit deeper into some of these. And then what I'm going to do at the end is then share with you some of the work that we have under construction right now in Arlington, Texas. So we're working with Infinite Esports based out of Frisco, and a lot of investment from Neil Liebman and the Texas Rangers, and we were selected to design a new esports venue right in the heart of Arlington. At the it's right near the Dallas Cowboys football stadium, the new Texas Rangers ballpark, Texas Live, and so this is going to be a really cool project, and I'll get to that here in a little bit. But as I mentioned, what we see with these venues is that we're trying to kind of create a critical mass of consumerism. And so when any project is coming about, typically we have a conversation now around not only how you design a venue, but how do you think about all the peripheral components that need to work and make it financially viable. So in this case, what you're seeing here is an esport venue, but again, thinking of ways you can then begin to integrate in condos, hotels, merchandising, retail, all sorts of peripheral things where you can bring community and create that critical mass 365 days of the year. It's super important. We're also looking at ways in which the building itself becomes very adaptable and multifunctional. So when you're looking at the facade, and Molly showed some of these images as well too, like what they did at Little Caesars Arena, creating facades that become dynamic in places to use surface mapping technologies, embedded LED technology. This is really the future, not only from an advertising perspective, but in this case, an opportunity where you can have gameplay that happens, on the entire facade of a building. These buildings are much more immersive from a technology standpoint, especially when you're talking about esports. Esports is a pretty broad spectrum, so it can mean anything from Fortnite to League of Legends to Dota 2. It can mean many different things, and so creating a venue that is able to change and be reactive to all these sorts of different games via technology is absolutely critical. I mentioned augmented reality, and we think that this is really, really critical. We're currently actually mentoring a startup company that's focused on developing some augmented reality solutions that will be that they have aspirations that will be connected into sports venues. And AR is one of the most important advances, we believe, in terms of affecting the in-venue experiences as anything. If you look at the technologies now that are being built into the new iPhones and all of Apple technology, you look at just the popularity of things as simple as Pokemon Go. This augmented reality experience, especially as you begin to think about ways that we can take data, we can take gameplay, we can take all these sort of things and map them into real-time environments, we think is going to be really, really critical as well moving forward. So thinking about the next-gen consumer, again, I'll touch on something that Molly stated earlier too, was that people now like to migrate around these venues. And I'm sure Alex sees this as well in his venue. The next-gen consumer has a new approach to the way that they like to experience a venue. Traditional premium products may not necessarily connect with this next-gen consumer that wants to sort of migrate around a venue, choose their own adventure in many ways. And so what we think is really going to be critical moving forward is sort of a redefinition of what premium is. In this case, we sort of, take some cues from Las Vegas and look at like a Hakkasan nightclub, for instance, and the way that you could have, kind of a bottle service, type of environment where people can sort of be in a premium space, but also be connected into the event. In this case, being able to tap into unique types of technologies and mapping and things like that. The interconnected fan experience. And again, what I'm talking about here is not only something that we think is important for esports, but for sports in general. Being able to connect fans and athletes together is absolutely essential. And one of those things that, again, is that draw to pull fans out of their living room into a venue. And so we have all sorts of new wearable technologies. If you look at like what the NFL uses, they use a Zebra technology where they know all the sort of biometric data that can be collected from the athlete. They know speed of movement, they know heart rate, they know body temperature, all sorts of things. And being able to deliver that to the fans, we think is super exciting. So how cool is it when a soccer player, for instance, has a wearable technology. He's lining up for that penalty kick at the 88th minute. If you were to be able to sit in your seat and you could feel his heartbeat in the back of your seat, those are the sort of things that we want to be able to do, and we are going to be able to do. And certainly to be able to do that in esports is something that we think is an awesome opportunity for a premium experience as well too. So you can imagine seating sections that will allow you to tap into those types of one-to-one interactions. So I'm going to actually kind of close this with some slides around what we're doing in Dallas right now. And as I mentioned, this is a project that's was very fast-paced. We were actually started the design process in January. We're under contract in May, and we're going to be opening in November. So they call that an accelerated schedule, and so we're definitely on an accelerated schedule here, and we're going to be opening for our first event, hopefully the day after Thanksgiving with a Counter-Strike event. And so what this project is basically we're working with the city of Arlington, and this is an adaptive reuse. And a great example of the way that you can give a second life to a building that may be currently underutilized or currently underperforming, and be able to inject it with a new life. In an awesome way that you can invest capital that where you don't have to put it into a completely new building, but you can do a lot of unique ways of cosmetic refreshes and all sorts of technology integration and things like that, where you can completely change it. So in this case, this was about a 200,000 square foot convention center in Arlington. And we're taking 100,000 square feet of that day one and designing a purpose-built esport stadium. So you can see here on the right, this is about a 30,000 square foot ballroom here, but all this area in the blue constitutes about 100,000 square feet of space. And so on the left-hand side is an expo hall, and that will be part of our day two strategy. But on the right, what we're doing is we're centering really about four kind of key areas here from a program perspective. The first is you see in the purple what we're calling the Gamer Gallery, which is our public-facing side of the project, and this will be the side where every day gamers will be able to come into the space. They'll have LAN stations. There'll be gameplay that will happen there every single day from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night, typically. University of Texas Arlington is actually going to have a part of their curriculum where students will be able to come here every day. Six Flags is right around the corner, and so this is going to be a place that's going to be active and full of people every day, and that's super, super important. What you see in the green is our competition arena, and this is a 30,000 square foot ballroom, which is going to be constructed into basically a big black box stadium, and it'll be scalable from anywhere from 250 seats all the way up to 2,500 seats. So they'll be able to have a big event, which we're going to have for our opening night, but then they'll also be able to scale the space down and be able to have watch parties and other local and regional events. And we're hopeful that the Dallas Fuel Overwatch team is going to be, this will be their home venue. So we're going to see if that gets all worked out. And there's two other pieces. So what you see in the kind of the orange in the middle is a production studio. And a big component of this is every single day being able to produce the content. So they'll have streaming content, they'll have content they'll be putting up on Twitch, they'll have a lot of just super high-end production equipment living in this space where they'll do green screens, and they'll be, like I said, producing all the content that will live online, and this is a big part of the overall development strategy. And just to give you a little bit of insight around the cost, of our construction budget, just that little piece alone, because of the sophisticated production equipment, is about 40% of our budget. And then the space at the back are the team areas. And so this is another big component of esports is training the teams and having those team spaces. Infinite, believe it or not, and I mentioned earlier about these athletes really being athletes. They just hired one of the head trainers from the San Francisco 49ers to come over. They've instituted a nutrition program. They're doing, they have a whole fitness regimen, and so they're training these young competitors as they would a professional athlete, because strength and mental acuity and just hand-eye coordination, all those things are super important, especially when you're competing at the highest level. So all of that will happen in that backspace as well. So just a few visuals that I want to share out. This is one of this is the first impression as you walk into the venue. So they'll have a really cool retail experience that you'll encounter as you walk into the venue, and then we'll have a really dynamic what we're calling the gamer gallery. So this is where all of that activity will happen with the gaming on a day-to-day basis, and then they'll have a screen in this space as well too, where they'll be able to have their smaller events. And then this is a view of the competition arena, so the main competition stadium. And so you're seeing in the middle, I don't know if any of you guys watched the Overwatch finals in Barclays Center, but we've been working really closely with Blizzard to be able to get this up to their conformance standards for Blizzard events and for Overwatch events. But it really is, as dynamic as anything that you would see in a high level rock show or professional wrestling, and so like the players will enter through this tunnel experience, and it will be everything like you would see at a pregame of the NFL. But the gamers will be on either side, and then typically what you see in esports, which you see here, is the gameplay will happen on a centralized screen, and then they'll have data and statistics, flanking that on the sides. So this main space, as I mentioned, scales from 250 to 2,500 or so seats, and it's all it's all LED and high performance media that's changing throughout. One of the things that they do in esports as well too is they'll have what they call shoutcasters, which will be usually flanking on the side of a stage that will be giving color commentary as the event goes on. So I got to tell you, when I started getting interested in esports, I really had no idea what was happening. So having these people be able to narrate the experience was quite helpful. But it's a really important part of the overall experience. And yeah, so you can see some of the different modes that'll change just through technology, lighting technologies, media technology, and then sponsorship integration. So we were talking a little bit about that earlier. The importance of sponsorship integration is really critical to the success of these buildings. And frankly, day one is going to be one of the most important parts, because it's not about ticket sales are going to be important ultimately, but their partnerships are going to be really critical to the overall financial success. And so they're really building in a robust sponsorship program for this venue. And ultimately, that's really going to be a driving part of the success, is getting people into a venue, exposing them to the brand, and allowing this culture to continue to grow. As I talked a little bit earlier, the player lounge, the team spaces, the places where these young players are going to come. Many of them are going to be in their academy, and so what they're doing is they're starting at an academy level, young players that they will take through. They'll train every day in their facility, and ultimately the top players will be awarded professional contracts. But being able to create a home environment is super important. And then this is just a quick view of the outside of the building. And again, this is an adaptive reuse of an existing convention center space. We're actually having some conversations with a number of potential naming rights partners at this point in time. But we'll look really closely to this in November as it opens. So a really it's been a very rewarding project for me personally to see this come about, but a great example of where the world is headed. And the world of sports is changing. Traditional sports in many ways is changing. As I mentioned, consumers are changing very dramatically, and the types of spending patterns are adjusting. The types of things that people want to invest in is very different, and so these types of venues are going to become more and more prevalent. And we really believe that we're entering into a new pantheon. So with that, I'm going to close. But thank you again for the opportunity. It was really a pleasure to speak with you.